Okay. So Flynn, you've met, and Flynn, congratulations and well done. That's a panel that includes two deep subject matter experts in that space, and you've done a beautiful job there, so well done. Congratulations as being part of that last panel. I'd also like to introduce Keira Rawlins, who studied a Bachelor of Communications at QUT and then has extended that chapter with the university and is now the Esports and Technology Officer, particularly focused around the sport division of QUT. We've obviously teed you up beautifully to talk about eSport this afternoon in terms of what we've covered today. And Jasmine Peters is immediately to my left. Jasmine's studying a Bachelor of Laws and Bachelor of Behavioural Science. Is a key member of the Mighty Phoenix Netball Club and was also for the last 18 months to the end of 2022 was a member of Netball Queensland's Youth Advisory Group and the Deputy Chair of that group. Let me quickly give context for why we've got our next generation leaders up here this afternoon. A couple of years ago, I heard Bernard Salt, who some of you will know as a demographer, talked about the fact that we're in a point in our history where we have as much to learn from our elders as we do our juniors. And I think about the opportunity in a day like today, in a forum like this, to bring the next generation of leaders who will be leading conferences like this, sitting in the chairs that you're sitting in now, in the roles you're sitting in now, in 2032, in 2042, in 2052, 2060, in Kieran's answers today. So I really want to give them an opportunity to share their perspective because they are going to inherit the industry that we lead. We're the stewards for this generation. So let me start, Jasmine, by asking you what moment or idea today really resonated with you and why?
I think for me, it was definitely when we talked about sport being not just high performance, because myself, I'm not in high performing sport. I have played community netball and slightly higher than that, but I haven't gone any higher than that and I don't intend to. And I think that increasing support for everyone in sport, not just highest athletes, is really important. I'm glad that we saw that today. It just makes everyone feel a bit more included in the community.
Yeah, thank you. And Keira, what about you? What was the thing that really landed with you today and why?
It's been a really great day to be here working in eSport and sport tech. It's been some incredible insights. Particularly the point in the sports tech panel that really resonated was the democratization of sport and that affordability we're seeing with tech. There's really important points that were also brought up in the women and girls panel around the biases inherent in tech. And while tech is not the utopian solution to democratization, accessibility, it's, for me personally, and what was discussed today, it's an opportunity to engage this new generation of young people who may have never seen themselves in competitive sport through these very easy to access, free to access tech systems that are coming through.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Flynn, what about you?
So also from the sports tech talk, I was really interested in how you're talking about how you can use sports tech in lots of different fields, but one part is as part of the admin side, just improving the admin efficiency and reducing the time you have to spend on that. Because making up time in that areas, as was mentioned, gives you more time for big strategic thinking, which is super important, as we were just talking about with sustainability. Having that as a strategic objective is really important so that your outcomes are sustainable. But not just that, when you're talking about a strategy for like women in sport and inclusivity and all these sort of things, these are big picture, more long-term thinking things that just sports tech can help out, indirectly. So that was a takeaway from me.
Yeah, thank you. And the next conversation, or next part of the conversation then is, that's what's really resonated with you. Was there something, Jasmine, that you thought we kind of didn't talk about today, either at all or enough, that you'd like to see us prioritise more as an industry going forward?
I really think that the gender discussion needs to be talked about more, not just men and women. It's not binary anymore. We've got so many more genders that are just not being acknowledged. And I'm quite passionate about this, especially in sport. For netball specifically, it's about bringing more men into the sport and giving them opportunities. And then for sport in general, it's about not having it just men and women. It's everyone in the sport having equal opportunities to get involved as much as they want to. And also for the transgender issue in sport, not that it's an issue to be transgender in sport, in terms of their representation and their safety and, just feeling secure in their sport. I think we don't think about it enough and we don't talk about it enough. And I don't know many people who are openly transgender in sport because they don't feel safe. So I think if we're going to have any impact on the coming generation, then it needs to be looking at gender as not binary, looking at everyone as equal and not giving opportunities to just two genders.
Thank you. Yep. Keira, what about you? What do we need to dial the volume up on as part of the conversation today going forward?
I think the big point for me going forward is how do we look at structuring pathways for esports athletes, for this new generation coming into digital tech and sport tech, whether that's applying it to traditional sporting frameworks in how we use that as a support system, or are we going to see athletes that are competing in just digital worlds on the international stage, as we're seeing with, Singapore next month, all the way leading up to 2032. So what as an industry does a framework for those athletes look like?
Yep, absolutely. And Flynn, what about you? What's something that you'd like to see either feature as much or more in the conversation we have as a sector going forward?
Yeah, so there's a lot of talk today about data and needing more data, whether that's across volunteering, sports tech, sustainability, participation, all sorts of stuff. There's talk of wanting more data, and more data is really important and it's good. But I suppose a word of caution and something to think about is more data is not always better. There are a lot of engineering companies across lots of different industries, and they're collecting a lot of data, but it's how you use the data that's really important. Mining companies, for example, I know they're collecting data 24/7 across their operations, and they're using the actual data that they use for insights is less than 1% of what's available. And the more data you collect, the more difficult it is to manage. And so I think the conversation around not just collecting the data, but then the next step of really using it and harnessing the insights is probably the next step that should be talked about.
And let's extend that then in the final question for the three of you. What's the one really big opportunity, the one really amazing thing that you'd love us as a collective to prioritise over the next, say, 3, 5, 10, 20 years? Jasmine, you first.
I really, this is based on what I heard today, I really loved the discussion around the Paralympics. That was just really beautiful to hear all the discussion around that. And I think if we prioritise that, it's just going to make sport way more inclusive for everyone. It just makes people not feel excluded from it. It gives them the opportunities to do what they want to do with the industry.
Yep. Thank you. Keira, what about you?
I think a common thread throughout the panels today that I've really picked up on is this idea of fan engagement and how we can leverage the growing interest in sport. And with esports, fan engagement is so baked into that. So how can we extend that to all sports and build these profiles and narratives surrounding our athletes all the way up to 2032? So we have these incredible support for our para-athletes, for our athletes heading into these games.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. Flynn, lucky last, the big opportunity. What should we have a crack at?
So I think I unfortunately wasn't able to make it for the morning session, so I can't wait to go back and watch the recording about all the talk about the Olympics and Paralympics, because I've heard that was absolutely fantastic. But from what I heard this afternoon, some really interesting stuff came out of the volunteering talk around the pathways of attracting people to volunteer. The reason I think that's important is because I know a lot of people, like myself included, and a lot of my friends, we grow up playing sport, and there's there's a drop off around high school or after high school around continued engagement in the sport. I volunteered at my golf club a few years ago for a golf tournament, and which was fantastic, but I was probably the only one under the age of 30 who was volunteering. It was a fantastic experience, and I wish more people could have that opportunity to do that. And I think looking at the pathways around volunteering, is something that can improve the lives of so many people, volunteers, participants, clubs, sports, everything.
Yeah. Seriously, I could talk to you guys for a really long time, and I will say that I spoke with each of the three people up here with me. I think I booked 15 minutes or 20 minutes to have a quick briefing beforehand, and I didn't get out of those conversations in under 35 or 40 minutes because, I've now been doing what I do now for long, and I'm kind of at the age that these guys were as when I started. And so hearing this next generation come through and talk about things, not just that they're incredibly knowledgeable about as you hear, but with that passion and the energy and the zip that's in this next generation that's coming through. From my perspective, as I said, we are the stewards of the industry for this group of people and their peers. Thank you, three of you, very much for joining us this afternoon, for the day and for this afternoon, and we look forward to having you involved in the conversation again going forward. Please join me in thanking Jasmine, Keira and Flynn.